All right, welcome back to the Now Share with Dr. Dave podcast. Here I am again here at the Tucson Festival of Books here in Tucson, Arizona. I am on the I am on the the University of Arizona campus. Um, over at the mall of the Tucson Festival of Books. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm live. Please. Anyway, so today we're gonna talk about belonging and healing, creating awesomeness for yourself and others. This is one of the books that I've written, and so when we talk about belonging and healing, I would say belonging is a basic human need, and for all of us, we all need to feel like we belong somewhere. Whether it's in our family, in our communities, and so one of the concepts that we use when I talk about belonging and healing is the concept of Ubuntu, right? And so when we think of Ubuntu, it's an African spiritual healing journey followed, by Archbishop Desmond Tutu and former South African President Nelson Mandela. In Belonging and Healing, the book Creating Awesomeness for Yourself and Others, one thing that I draw upon is the powerful philosophy of Ubuntu, to deliver the simple roadmap of building positive teams and relationships and improving engagement and performance. So, some of the topics that we cover in this book, some of the things that you would learn is really the importance of belonging and healing and why we all need to belong somewhere. And so, the language of belonging and how we can adjust our language to be more inclusive of other people of different walks and different walks of life. So we can think about how can Ubuntu help you develop successful organization. Also answering the question, how can Ubuntu conquer narcissism and microaggression? This is, we had some good bonus content in this book with conversation with Coach Nobantu, Empatula of Ubuntu Coaching in South Africa, and also therapist Tracy of DNS Healing Center. We had some great conversations in this book about healing and belonging, and the principle of belonging. So I'm going to just look as I'm looking into the book and some of the topics that we're covering. All right. So belonging and healing. One of the things that we talk about is Ubuntu over narcissism, Ubuntu over microaggression, right? And I'm reading the book right now just to bring some context. Then, Ubuntu brings gratitude, and Ubuntu creates successful organizations. So we look at those topics as really key things to help us to get better as leaders in our organization. So if we answer the question, right, why is Ubuntu really important? I start with, Maya Angelou, and she said, I long as every other human being to be at home wherever I find myself. Having that longing, that yearning, that desire to be and to be seen and heard and felt. And so when we experience belonging, there's a sense of acceptance, inclusion, and identity within a specific group. And since we were born, we've always wanted to belong. Everyone has that desire to belong somewhere, right? And bring that forward. So most humans have been guided to belong to their family and community since the time of birth, right? This is something that we always wanted. And so we can look at other authors who have talked about, belonging and healing. And so we look at an author like Harari of 2015, and he said he thinks of belonging as an intimate community where people know each other well and depend on each other for survival. So just our survival alone is dependent on the belonging, which is really super important in that journey. So the work and the conversation talks about the purpose, the why of belonging. And it's like not something that if you're working within an organization, it should not be just the work of human resources, HR. We all need to play a part in that journey, right? And so we need to engage people, all people, to share positive and negative stories of belonging, which could also help our acceptance, to help to improve acceptance, also inclusion and compassion toward each other. So this book is really talking about how we interact and engage with each other, and begin to bring that great sense of value, that we need. So also what was interesting, as we jump forward, we could talk about the language of belonging. What does that look like? Um, and so, I go back to an old adage of sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never harm me. And I say that's only partially true, because language is made up of words, and it's important that we use language that could be positive and really uplifting for other people as part of our journey of the language of belonging. So when you think of Eleanor Roosevelt, and she said, "No one could make me feel inferior without my consent." It's only true when you are in a place of mental and emotional strength where that statement is actually true. Because if you're traumatized, you know, permission, whatever we want to think about, if you're traumatized, you're going to have a hard time being able to say that no one can make me feel inferior without their consent. So this is something else that we're dealing with in the book, in terms of looking at language, in terms of what could be really helpful and powerful. And so when I say the language of belonging, so we're talking about a tone of invitation, a voice of acceptance, and the sound of empathy, right? That we're talking about. That's what we're talking about in this book, right? And when we think of the tone of invitation, it's really helping us to say, bring your whole self, and you're welcome here. That's part of the conversation that we're having here. And the voice of acceptance says that you are enough. The sound of empathy rings out that we are envisioning what it's like to be in your shoes, what it's like to walk in your shoes, which is a powerful thing. And we think of the language of belonging, it reverberates with joy and laughter in a core of people receiving invitation, acceptance, and empathy. So it's very much a way for us to connect with each other, very much a way for us to, get better at things. So one of the concept that I wanted to just lean into is a little bit about Ubuntu itself, right? I think it's really important that we understand the concept of Ubuntu. Um, and when I think of Ubuntu and the way that it's defined by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, he says, a person is a person through other people, through other persons. That's his definition of Ubuntu, that a person is a person through other persons, through other people, right? And so when we think of the fundamental meaning of Ubuntu, is that it is that things we learn and experience are based on relationship with other people. And so I like to think that Ubuntu means I am because we are, or I am because you are, right? And so one of the things that the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu was able to do is working through the Truth and Reconciliation (TRC) commission. He started the healing process. To make sure that people have an opportunity to come forward and be open about the wrongs that they have committed, and give someone also on the other side an opportunity to forgive that other individual, right? And that's the healing part of it. Forgiveness is the healing side of what I'm talking about here. And so that is a really powerful practice that you could have in any type of organization, because organizations will not thrive without belonging and healing. Belonging and healing is essential. Um, and so when I say Ubuntu trumps narcissism, and because of by its design, it's about equality, between each person, and not one person being superior to the other, right? And when we say Ubuntu over microaggression, and so when you think of those microaggressions, or these subtle statements and actions that imply bias against another person. So Ubuntu itself really helps to dampen that down. And then, but also Ubuntu as a practice helps to bring gratitude. And we're talking practicing the habit of equality with people in your family, community, or organization would ultimately lead to gratitude, right? Of just being overwhelmed by narcissism, microaggressions, apathy, fear. This is one good practice that we could put into place and find success, right? And so I wanted to go in a little further and just talk about healing, which is the other side, right? We talked about belonging and why it's important and the language of belonging. So healing is a really important aspect, and we all need it, right? Whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It is something that we all need. So I think it was important for me as I'm walking toward the end of the day here at the Tucson Festival of Books that we get to understand, what's really important for us, right? Something that's really critical in our side. So one thing I wanted to share before I go any further is that, you could find the Belonging and Healing book and most of my books, on Amazon.com. I wanted to just share that out. And then also on www.drdaveduca.com as well. You could, find digital versions of the book, or you could even order printed versions of the book as well, so that you could just learn more and grow in the process. It's all a journey. That's what it's all about, right? And so when I think of healing, I'm saying healing is a slow process, and it really takes time for us to metabolize the experiences that affected us physically, spiritually, and mentally. It's really important. So the healing journey oftentimes is oftentimes a response to trauma, which is the negative experiences that often affect other people. So this is also another thing that we have to be very mindful of and be aware of. So when you think of healing, I think of the concept of the root before the fruit, right? So we can't get fruit unless we have some roots put down for a tree, in order for us to grow. And that helps. What we're talking about is that we need solid roots to support, it's just sustainable opportunity to bear fruit in our healing space, right? And so we have to be mindful that we need to, over time, when I said healing is a slow process, over time, we begin to lay down those fruits that allow us to be successful in the process, right? And also, you think of healing, it's also just an antidote to trauma. It is important to go through that journey and this process for us to really allow us to metabolize all of the experiences that we have. It's also the ability for us to respond effectively to things. And so one of the healing power that I like to look into is forgiveness. It's hard. Forgiveness is hard. We know that. It's a tough thing to do. So forgiveness is a powerful state of spiritual, mental, and physical presence that allow us as a person to move beyond the trauma experience. Now, I want to tell you this, that using the healing power of forgiveness, it's not easy. And we may not be able to actually physically go and tell someone that we forgive them for the trauma they've caused, right? Whether it's someone in our family or community or at work, wherever it is, we may not be able to do that. Whether it's fear or anxiety or whatever the stress level it is that we're experiencing, it's something that we have to just be mindful of. And so when I think of belonging and healing, it's essential for any organization in any aspect of our lives to be able to sustain ourselves and be very successful. And the goodness is when you use the principles of Ubuntu and you use forgiveness in the process, they work very well together, right? So these are just very um, important concepts for us to begin to learn more about, and look at different ways of how we could experience belonging and healing in our organizations and in our personal life. But so, with that, I just wanted to, as we're winding down the day here over at the Tucson Festival of Books, um, this is an opportunity for you to, go out there and learn more about some of the books that I've put out there, and about belonging and healing, about delivering value, um, other topics that I've covered, looking at Ashanti Mwendo, and that book series in terms of the work of a woman leading a technology company, and especially a woman of color, a Black woman leading a technology company that deals with artificial intelligence and virtual reality, having success in that context. There's some spoken word stuff that's out there, that Prayers to My Abba Father God, which is a series of songs that I've written in the past. But songs are spoken word. You could turn them into spoken words, and those are excellent opportunities for you to leverage and use and gain knowledge and experience with. So, there's just a lot of different goodness that could benefit your life and benefit your way of thinking, and even just your way of being and how you show up, right, in this experience. So with that, I wanted to say thank you for everything, for all the supporters, the people who have supported the work that I'm doing, for the people who are here today at the Tucson Festival of Books in Tucson, Arizona, at the University of Arizona campus. This is, I just have so much gratitude to be here today. So yeah, this is just so awesome to be able to share my podcast with you. And yeah, you could find my podcast. You could find it on Spotify. You could find it at Amazon, Audible, Google, Apple, and many other channels. And so you could find the Null Share with Dr. Dave podcast on many of those channels, or you could just look for Null Share with drdave.com. And with that, signing out, and everyone just have an amazing day. Peace.